This is what I think schools need. They need someone who can go through the basic global skills of courtesy, collaboration, communication, critical thinking, creativity, knowing how to access and analyze information, adaptability and agility, entrepreneuring, and taking the initiative. I call these the 5 C's, the 4 A's, and the I in E. I've listened to people who are well-read. And perhaps that's better than listening to someone who has a degree in education. One of the most influential sets of people regarding education is Howard Gardner, but we have to look at people like Daniel Pink, Thomas Friedman, Malcolm Gladwell, people who do not come from education but are giving us prescriptions about how we can improve our schools. If you're going to teach math, let them discover it. Let it be integrated rather than have an isolated course, which is prepping someone for SAT. Yes, that may be important, but link it. Link it in so that decimals can be found in medicine. Conversions come with travel because we want to know, well, if it's 20 degrees outside C, how much in Fahrenheit? Well, it's 68 because you learned it at the school. Facebook and Skype can be used for collaboration and self-esteem. Erik Erikson pointed out that somewhere around age 11 to 13, you have to be industrious. You have to be checking if you are useful. That's where I think students need to be reverse interns. There's a concept that they've learned something well enough so that they can teach us. They can do a reverse mentorship. All students need to have mentors, and I'd like them to, when they graduate from the high school that I work at, I want every student to have a friend on every continent and at least one friend in every city that they want to visit. We can do this with Skype and Facebook. Students should have a personal digital library, something that they've collected themselves and can hand to another person and say, this is the music, the videos, the things that make sense to me. They also need to have a portfolio of their work. Just as artists carry their work, students will leave with work. I'm proposing that math not be taught as a separate activity, that the time spent on calculus and pre-calculus be invested in another language. Fractions can be picked up with cooking and carpentry. This whole concept is trying to drive things to be more visual and active and verbal. The world's largest 15 by 15 multiplication table could be created so that people will be able to see, okay, 25 times 25, that's 625. Mental math can be brought back, and it's the looking for patterns. Instead of calling it a multiplication table and factors, let's talk about who the parents of 144 are, like 12 times 12, or 9 times what, or 18 times what. By reminding ourselves that there are many ways of absorbing information and presenting them, we also have to have many ways of assessing. This is where portfolios are particularly important, not only for figuring out whether the kid learned something, but as formative portfolios, something that can be used to assist in the learning. I recommend looking at the work of Enrique Gonzalez with Frida Kahlo and Nightingale Middle School over in Los Angeles. The schools that Thomas Talk recommended, Urban Academy, the Met, High Tech High, the Take Apart Lab. These were all places that I've pulled techniques from, and where I teach, I would like to bring those techniques. One of the things that helps is to have teachers eating with the kids. It's the Deming analysis of schools. Howard Gitlow is one of those people, and having students able to look at the qualities of what makes a system work. There's no reason why they couldn't have a simplified way of looking at what makes a system work, and we can start by guarding people. One of the biggest things that Deming brought to us is the expression, drive out fear. And that's how you teach math, not by repetitive remedial work, but rather by removing the fear. The fear factor has to be dealt with. Every classroom needs to have Dan Pink in it, his 3 books, Drive, Reagent Nation, and A Whole New Mind. Malcolm Gladwell's 3 books of Blink, The Tipping Point, and Outliers, and the concept of 10,000 hours. Students have to be able to pull together something that they love so much so that they can have that, at least half of those 10,000 hours by the time they graduate. Neil Postman's point about teaching as a subversive activity, and Dennis Littke's The Big Picture School, these are articles that and books that will form the basis of any tutoring that I do here. The Art of Changing the Brain, fascinating book. The guy refuses to lecture anymore because he has to only teach through projects and through discovery methods. He found out that students just turn off. Daniel Amen's books on brain research has a very clear step-by-step method for how to handle email. I'd be happy to bring that in. And John Naisbeth has a book called Mindset. It's required reading for a course that I'm taking, but it is something that will, a set of skills that teenage students will find intriguing. Michael Gurian's The Mind of Boys needs to be integrated, and of course Thomas Friedman, The World is Flat. Karen Armstrong gives, her chapter 5 should be required reading, and I would bring that in as part of remedial math because that's where we get certain aspects of math from. And I'm very hopeful that this gives you an idea of the kind of materials that could be brought into a remedial math program. Again, personal digital library, portfolio, mentors, and being able to know the chances and evaluate risk is so much more important than calculus and trig. And the time saved by not studying calculus can be put into an extra language. That's my pitch.